What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lateral Grip Bristol. We're going to talk Bristol. We've got three races to cover as far as Bristol is concerned. We've got the Truck Series race, we've got the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race, and we've got the Cup race. All right. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to dive into it. Well, first off, let's talk storylines, that type of thing. Well, as we know, one, there was no, as we know, Corey LaJoy is in that 10 truck full time. So you expect some good rides out of there. There were eight full time cup drivers, excuse me, that were in the truck race on Friday evening. So there was that as well. Not a lot of huge storylines or anything, just some pretty basic stuff. But there was a full field, right? And of course, Corey Heim was going for the third win to secure himself a $500,000. Now, even though there were all these Cup Series regulars, all Corey Heim would have had to do was finish second behind one of them, and he would have gotten the because it's the first regular driver in the Truck Series, so he would have gotten the $500,000. And of course, that's what we were going for, but Bristol had its own mindset of what it wanted to do that night. But here we go. So let's talk Bristol. So Bristol, we had Christopher Bell in the field, we had Ross Chastain, we had Kyle Busch, we had Carson Hocevar, we had I told you a host of other Cup drivers as well in the field. But the race was full of cautions. It definitely had a lot of cautions. Now, Bristol, years back, they tried to progressively do Bristol so that you could race all over the track. People liked it, and then all of a sudden they didn't like it just that fast. They wanted old Bristol back. They wanted you to be down at the bottom, hugging the line down there, and that's what they wanted. They wanted that old Bristol feel, that whole bump and run thing. That's what they preferred. Well, the thing is, when the rubber gets laid down, because we are still progressive, what happens is Bristol still becomes a wider racetrack. Now, of course, in the beginning, they had the PJ1, the resin, whatever the heck they want to call it. This week, they had it in about a 3 foot line down the bottom of the track. They had about a 3 foot section down there on the white line, essentially all the way around the track. And so that provided for trucks being able to stay on the bottom groove. That provided for it to activate, hold them on the bottom groove. But of course, as the race goes on, people start moving up. They start, rubber starts getting laid down a little bit. And next thing you know, we are racing all over the track. Now, I prefer the racing all over the track. I'm not all about the whole bump and run thing, and they got to stay at the bottom of the track. Not really a fan of that so much. If I was, I'd probably watch more late models. Don't get me wrong, I like late models. I just don't like the fact that you're stuck to a one groove track. That's always something that's kind of bothered me with racing. But in this case, Bristol has gotten to the point where it's multi groove. Now there wasn't a lot of tire wear though. The tires weren't really wearing. But here's what we have to talk about. Okay, so Frankie Muniz was in this race. And of course on his truck he has the reboot of Malcolm in the Middle. And we got a nice view of that reboot as he smashed into the wall after contact with Tyler Reif. Now, this was on lap 118. It was later in the race, but Frankie Muniz wasn't going to get a lot of time other than that. So that crash allowed him to get lots of picture time and for him to be able to show off that sponsor, obviously his own sponsor there. So that was there. Okay. Let's see here. Lap 168, Kyle Busch uh, shut off his engine to save fuel, and his truck failed to refire immediately, causing him to the fall from the lead to the 10th position before the restart. That is one of those things that's just kind of, my goodness, Kyle can't catch a break type of thing. No, don't get me wrong. He was using a strategy to get up to the lead at that point. But the fact that the truck just didn't restart, that was a problem. He probably didn't have the best truck, and maybe the clean air would have gotten him where he needed to go and stay there. But with that being said, Kyle Busch woes once again. When it comes down to it. Triple truck challenge. We got Corey Heim in this thing. Corey Heim, Christian Eckes. They're racing back and forth. Uh, Corey Heim rolls past Christian Eckes, pretty much gets him cleared, and Chris Neckis misjudged, is what they're saying, and he hooked him. He hooked Corey Haim. And when he hooked Corey Haim, he destroyed that truck. Now he opened the door for everybody else to collect $50,000 because again, Corey Haim was going for $500,000. They were going for $50,000. But with that being said, yeah, Corey Haim, unfortunately out of the race at that point. He interviews. He doesn't really, he was pretty nonchalant about it, which, hey, give him some credit on that. But he was pretty nonchalant about it. He was like, hey, life happens. This is what happens in racing. He didn't really blame Eckes, which is, I guess pretty strong on his part because I don't know if I'm going for $500,000 and I'm the only one who can get it and you took me away from it, there's probably gonna be some stronger words. I'm just saying. Maybe, there's maybe that's the difference. I don't know. But with that being said, Corey Haim is now out of the race. Okay. That is a big that was a big deal right there. Corey Haim is out of the race. Now there's a wreck later on in the race. Caden Honeycutt, Lane Riggs. And when they got into each other, they effectively handed the lead to Christopher Bell, who was in this race again as a Cup regular. And Christopher Bell ends up winning this race. Okay. Now, Christopher Bell wins the race. Top 10, Chandler Smith, second. Third, Gio Ruggiero. Fourth, Ross Chastain. Fifth, Christian Eckes. Sixth, Jake Garcia. Seventh, Dawson Sutton. Eighth is Kyle Busch. Ninth, Carson Hocevar. And 10, Brendan Queen. Now, Chandler Smith is doing his second place interview, talking about how they had a good day. Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I wish we were a little better. I wish we could have won the race and, yada, yada, yada. And that's when they tell him, hey, well, you did win $50,000 for your team with the triple truck challenge. And he was surprised. He completely, obviously forgot about that. That was fun. That was a cool thing to watch, was watching him react to realize that they had just won 50 grand for the team there. So that was pretty cool. That's a nice bonus for Chandler Smith. I'm not the biggest Chandler Smith fan. However, hey, man, he earned a spot. He knows how to drive. He's good where he is. And unfortunately, if he had more money, he'd probably be higher up in the series, just to be real honest with you. But, that has nothing to do with Chandler Smith as a person. I'm just not a Chandler Smith fan. But, Chandler Smith is a great driver. Chandler Smith needs some more money so that he can move higher up and be able to do more. But he does pretty well with what he's got. So congratulations to Chandler Smith for getting the 50K. Congratulations to Christopher Bell for winning the truck race. And we are going to now move on to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. I'm doing pretty well with that. I'm getting pretty surprised at myself right there. All right. So the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, we saw, let me see here. I'm going to get to the right thing. Okay. We saw a lot of jockeying back and forth. Once again, kind of the same thing. There wasn't really tire wear. There was obviously tires, we obviously saw rubber hitting the track because it moved the groove up, right? You were able to race on all sides of the track towards the middle of a run, on all lanes. You were able to get a lot done. Now, again, we did have some Cup notables in this one. We had Kyle Larson in this one. Kyle Larson pretty much dominated this race. Obviously Corey Day's in this, Parker Retzloff, Sheldon Creed, Carson Quapple, all the main ones. Brent Cruz. Remember, Brent Cruz is now 18, so he can race every race. Bristol would have been fine though, because he was still good for that one. But so anyway, so here we go. So the race featured 8 cautions for a total of 59 laps. Lap 176, there was a big fight. Mason Maggio's car erupted in flames on pit road. That was a scary scene. He was uninjured. Are basically right in front of all the fire safety people and able to jump out, and they got that car doused down. Now, of course, there was an extended red flag on that because they did have to deal with that. There were some late race spins. Greg Galding spun in turn 1 on lap 270, and Anthony Alfredo spun on the front stretch later. Which, by the way, when Anthony Alfredo spun, that set up the final 11 lap sprint. Now, Connor Zillage was in the mix all day. And remember, Connor's now Cup regular. He won a ton of races last year in the O'Reilly, what was Xfinity at that time, but he won a ton of races in that series last year. And he was back down there this year, and he's been struggling in Cup. So I think he just needed to know that he could still drive a race car. With that being said, um, that last restart, Connor Zilic, he's out front. You got Brent Cruz, you got Kyle Larson. Both Brent Cruz and Kyle Larson brushed the wall a little bit. Connor Zilic gets himself a lead. Connor Zilic wins the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series at Bristol. It was a good race. It was a fun race to watch. Again, there was a lot of jockeying back and forth towards the middle and back, not necessarily up front, because again, uh, geez, Kyle Larson, he was dominating that thing. I thought that thing was over. Looked like he was dominating that thing. But with that being said, we do have the Dash for Cash to talk about. Now, in the Dash for Cash, Justin Allgaier, he was the top finisher of the non-regulars, and he won 100 grand for his team for the first Dash. Okay. So with that being said, congratulations, Justin Allgaier. He's doing big things in that series right now. I mean, he's just crushing it. He's like he's just got it all figured out now. His team is taking good care of him. So there you go. But again, like I said, Zilic Larson was the dominant car for most of the night, leading 230 laps, and he swept both stages, 1 and 2. But he did lose the lead on a pit stop. And when that happened, Zillage stayed out and Zillage held him off on older tires. Once again, where was the tire wear at Bristol? There just really wasn't any. It was really weird how that happened. But with that being said, we look back at our point standings now going into Kansas. By the way, no truck series in Kansas next week. It is strictly the O'Reilly series and the Cup series. But Justin Allgaier still has a firm lead on the points with a 131-point lead over Sheldon Creed. Then we got Jesse Love, Corey Day, Brandon Jones, Sammy Smith, Carson Quapple, Austin Hill, Taylor Gray, William Sawalich, Parker Retzloff, and Raja Karut lead out our top 10 in points. And again, O'Reilly's will be at Kansas next week. So look for that. I believe ARC is in Kansas as well. But we will not see any Cletus McFarland in the O'Reilly series anytime soon. However, he will be in the ARC Menard series next week. So we will see that, but we won't see O'Reilly series. So with that being said, that is the O'Reilly race, and we're going to go ahead and move right on to the Cup race. Cup race, Food City 500 at Bristol Motor Speedway. All right, so this race, once again, where was tire wear? Guys stayed out on 100 and some odd lap tires, and it didn't affect them hardly at all, if any. I don't think their times changed, to be quite honest with you. That was it. It is crazy how last year's race, maybe it was 2 years ago now, I'm not sure, but how those races, the tires just gave up and all of a sudden you couldn't go anywhere. But in this Bristol race, the tires were supposed to be soft. Again, they had the PJ1 again, same 3 feet essentially right down towards the bottom of the track. But as soon as the tire rubber started getting on the track, so there's some tire wear somewhere. As soon as the tire rubber started getting on the track and holding to the track, the groove widened out. Okay, now you're at the top, you're at the bottom. You've seen guys giving like a severe diamond to the corner. Like literally, they would go up into the high end of the corner and dive back down inside and try to take that momentum and get to the inside for the next corner to try to make a pass. Then, of course, middle of the race, towards the end of the race, you started seeing passing on the outside specifically. It kind of reminded me the diamond of the corner. And this is for all you old dogs. You may not remember this. I remember this specifically because my driver was Jeremy Mayfield. And at that time, we had the Rocket Man, Ryan Newman. And I remember Jeremy Mayfield had the pole position, looked like it was locked up. And we're talking about qualifying here for just a second. And Ryan Newman gets out there and he goes his first lap and he totally blows it. And then next thing you know, he pulls way up on top, to the high side of the track at Bristol and just runs it down as hard as he can. Basically putting a diamond together to create that lap, and bam, he had the fast lap, and he took Jeremy Mayfield off the pole. Jeremy Mayfield was second, but Ryan Newman was known as the Rocket Ryan Newman at that point, and I think he got like 8 or 9 poles that year. He was killing it. But that's what it reminded me of, them racing. They were going clear to the top of the track, or essentially to the three-quarter point of the track in the corner, and then ripping it down towards the bottom, trying to get that momentum swing to be able to get them, to get them to the next corner. That's what it seemed like happening. And it was working. It was working. Christopher Bell seemed like he was really, really good at that. So yeah, that was that. As far as that goes, but again, there was really no tire wear. There were guys that stayed out on 100 and some odd lap tires, and it didn't affect them. There were no flat tires that really I had seen, and so there's that. So with that being said, the race did feature 9 cautions for 72 laps. So the early incidents, Christopher Bell. So Christopher Bell was up in the top 5, if not leading the race. Christopher Bell goes into pit. And his team, which his team is usually lights out. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember if it was a speeding penalty or if it was just something on pit road. I think it actually might have been a speeding penalty here, but either way, he had a problem on pit road. He had to go to the back. He was penalized to the back. So I believe it was speeding. So with that incident, that put him towards the back. Now, Christopher Bell, he's a racer. He's gonna do everything he can to get to the front as fast as he can. Unfortunately, he just lost control of the car and tried to take down the wall a little bit. And when he did that, he damaged the car pretty bad. I think he actually broke a toe link. So he had to come in. They had to fix some suspension pieces on the car. He did get back out there, but he was several laps down at that point. Now you had one of your main contenders in Christopher Bell pretty much out of this race as far as contending for the lead. Mid-race chaos, multi-car incident involving Kyle Busch, Eric Jones, Michael McDowell, and Christopher Bell. Once again, Christopher Bell in another wreck. So this just told you it was bad to worse. Okay. Yeah. So Kyle Busch, it seemed like he was fighting back. He was not as good as obviously he wanted to be. And you can't say it's Kyle Busch. You can say it's the car because him and his teammate are about the same place every week. They're not any higher, they're not any lower. They're within a couple of spots of each other generally, unless something happens on pit road or something like that. It seems like they are very, very close to each other when it comes down to that. But with that being said, so we got Kyle Busch in an incident, and now what happens here is Riley Herbst actually turns Kyle Busch. I don't know if there was some issues there, but Riley Herbst turns Kyle Busch, and Kyle gets turned around. There's some wrecking behind him. Kyle's car wasn't completely destroyed, and it's Bristol, so aerodynamics isn't as important. But this is what happens here, and this is what we got. Kyle did need some extensive work on his car, so it did put him some laps down at that point. Now, 24 laps remaining. And by the way, here we are again. The dominant force in this race for a lot of this race was once again Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson was really strong in this race, which was wild because his teammate William Byron was really bad in this race. I know they had to change the steering rack the night before, but they just weren't very good. Talking about William Byron. But here we go. So Chase Elliott spins with 24 laps remaining. While Blaney was leading, and Blaney was strong, but Blaney has spent his season passing cars after his pit crew has not given him the best stop. That is what Blaney has spent his season doing, just continually passing cars. Blaney knows how to pass some cars, that's for sure. So you start getting that guy out front without having to pass so many cars, he's going to be just fine. But here we go. So Chase Elliott spins 24 laps to go. So that means that Blaney was leading, then it was Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar, Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin, and Tyler Reddick. Now, all of those chose to stay out on their old tires to gain track position, but Blaney and Larson decided to pit for 4 fresh tires. So we go back to racing. Ty Gibbs is now ahead. He decides track position. He wants the track position. He is not worried about the tires. Obviously, like I pointed out, the tires aren't wearing, so the tires really weren't that important. But with just a couple of laps to go, now keep in mind, Riley Herbst had passed Kyle Busch throughout the day after Riley had spun Kyle Busch earlier in the race. Now, I'm not saying there was any maliciousness in that particular spin with Kyle Busch at that point. However, when Riley was in front of Kyle at the end of the race, uh, Riley got loose, and Kyle wasn't able to check up in time, and Riley got spun. Is the story we're going with. But however, let's be honest. Kyle wasn't going to check up regardless of whether Riley got loose or not. Kyle was going to spin Riley Herbst out. That's just what was going to happen, and that's exactly what did happen. And of course, when he did that, that now racked him up one more time. And next thing you know, we now have a shootout. But Ty Gibbs did some pretty cool things. I wouldn't have said Ty Gibbs things because I haven't seen him do that in the Cup Series. Because bottom line, this was Ty Gibbs' first win. Congratulations to Ty Gibbs for winning this race. It was coming. We all knew it was coming. Doesn't matter how you feel about Ty Gibbs. I didn't feel any kind of way about Ty Gibbs. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm going to completely rephrase that because that is wrong. I despised Ty Gibbs. I don't know why. Maybe it's the whole Nepo baby thing. Maybe it's the whole thing. Honestly, I can tell you what it is. The Nepo baby thing was unfortunate, but the crashing into your teammate and spinning them out so that they couldn't go to the championship race or even win the race at Martinsville a few years back in the what was at that time, maybe the Nationwide Series, maybe Xfinity, I'm not sure. That was my big problem with Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs' future set. There's no question about that, right? But when you take away somebody else's future, that was a problem. And obviously, that did change the dynamic because shortly thereafter, Brandon Jones leaves the team. He goes to uh, Junior Motorsports, but he did end up coming back to JGR. So I guess that became water under the bridge there. But that was really probably his one true chance to win the championship at that point. But we digress. Here we are. Ty Gibbs, he's worked hard. He's worked, he's doing whatever it takes to try to get it done. So I hold nothing against him. Congratulations to him for winning that race. In fact, it was a pretty cool interview. It was fun to watch. That kid knows how to do a freaking burnout. He burned it out, put it right in line where it's supposed to be, and then set it right on the start finish line. And it was beautiful. It was meant to be as far as I'm concerned. So congratulations to Ty Gibbs. Congratulations to Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs, I know that's been a long time coming, for your grandson to win in the Cup Series. So that's pretty big. He's definitely not going anywhere. We knew he wasn't going anywhere anyway, but this just solidified him. That's all there is, when it comes to that. Okay, so again, like I said, there were really no, there just really wasn't tire wears, to really to speak of there. Now there were some, and this is beforehand. I probably should have mentioned this. There were some inspection failures that caused some people to lose some, pit locations. One of those people being Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Michael McDowell. That might have played a big hand in Kyle Larson not being able to, execute the way he wanted to on pit road necessarily. But again, if he doesn't take those tires, he might win the race. He's probably pretty close to winning the race if nothing else there. So, with that being said, let's look at our top 10. Our top 10: Ty Gibbs wins his first race. Ryan Blaney second. Kyle Larson third. Tyler Reddick fourth. Chase Briscoe fifth. Todd Gilliland. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Somebody we don't see every day. Todd Gilliland in that 34 car, sixth place. Seventh, Joey Logano. Eighth, Ryan Preece. Ninth, Denny Hamlin, and 10th was Carson Hocevar. That is our top 10. Let's look at the series standings for the Cup Series. Let's see here. Tyler Reddick still has the lead. However, that lead is only 62 points now. Ryan Blaney second, Denny Hamlin third, Ty Gibbs fourth place. Winning means a lot this year. You get a lot of points for winning. So there you go. Fifth, Chase Elliott. Sixth, Kyle Larson. Seventh, William Byron. Eighth, Bubba Wallace had a solid day. Bubba Wallace is back up in the top 10 in points. He's in eighth place. Christopher Bell ninth. Chris Buescher is in 10th. So there you go, right there. All right. So Shane Van Gisbergen, a lot's been talked about Shane Van Gisbergen in that he's been kind of the flagship guy for Trackhouse right now. And he still is holding on to the final playoff spot, 16th right now. Obviously, he wants to see a road course. He wants to see a road course real bad. But with that being said, here we go. Next week, we're going to Kansas. Fast 1.5 mile track. Should be a lot of drafting. And I say drafting as in the air is going to make a difference. Okay, it's not as much drafting as there is at Talladega or Daytona or even Atlanta now. But you're not going to be able to be side by side with a car and make any type of time. You're going to have to get nose to tail and in order to make time or in order to not allow somebody to catch you so quickly. So there's probably going to be some give and take at this track early on, because again, you're going to want to maintain speed, not lose speed. So Kansas next week ought to be fun. Toyota's always been really dominant at Kansas, although Kyle Larson will come in there and stink up the show once in a while. So we do have that going for us. And of course, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, they want to come back and get back where they need to be in Kansas as well. So that's what we have to look forward to. ARCA is at Kansas next week. Some notables there. Cletus McFarland will be in the race. Squirrel. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's something McNutt. He is in the race. Also out of Cletus McFarland's camp. And I say camp as in one of his employees, I think. And then this lady, let's see here. Let me see if I can find her name real quick. I've been seeing this on social media. Let's see. Where are you? Look for it here real quick. All right. Okay, I am not seeing it. I am just gonna go ahead and look it up. I've been seeing her on social media as the first Black woman. They're saying African American, but anyway. In a driver role. Let's see here. First Black woman in NASCAR driver. There we go. We'll just look. I was all over the place with that. That is not. There it is. Destiny. It's probably Destiny. Dystany Spurlock is recognized as the first Black woman to compete in a NASCAR affiliated national race. She will be competing in the ARCA Menards series next week. So excited for her. We're gonna see what she's gonna do in this thing, and we'll be excited to see that. I'm under the adage. Obviously, there's not enough women in racing. Obviously, drag racing has really taken care of that. But as far as circle track racing and stuff like that, there's not enough women to sway, because it's still a law of averages no matter how you look at it, right? If you have one woman and 40 guys, well, it's a 39 and 40 chance that a male is going to win. It's a 1 in 40 chance that a woman's going to win, right? So if you need to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 women in the series in order to at least try to sway those numbers a little bit. With that being said, Destiny Spurlock, she is the next one in line. Not only is she a woman, she's a Black woman. So that's 2 pieces of history right there. And with that being said, she will be at ARCA, or in the ARCA for Kansas, and we'll see what happens there. And with all of that being said, I will get out of here, be signing off. I will be looking forward to Kansas next week. Really wonder what they're going to do with Bristol, though. I hope they want to do something about the tire wear. I hope that does become a concern because, I don't want to see tires blown out, but I want to see tires make a difference. I don't want to see someone on 100 lap tires going the same speed. Just don't want to see that. But it seems like nobody can figure out how to get it right. It's the temperature of the day. It's how many clouds are in the air. There's a million things going on apparently. So with that being said, we'll see what happens. Until next week when we talk Kansas, excuse me, stay smooth, stay fast, and keep that right foot on the floor. And this is Lateral Grip, and I'm out.